welcome back to my channel. My name's Kaylee and these are my books. So today's video is a TBR video, and this is a bit of a special TBR video because it is my TBR for October readathons that I am participating in. I went a little bit crazy and I'm trying to participate in 3 October readathons because there's just so many fun Halloween readathons to participate in. And I was like, I want to participate in 3, so my TBR for this video is 18 books long. And yet I am still doing a separate TBR from this video where I play my monthly TBR game in addition to the 18 books on this TBR video. Am I setting myself up for disaster? Maybe. I will be prioritizing the books for the readathons that I want to participate in, so the books that are chosen by my TBR game will just be bonus books if I make it past all of these 18 books I've selected for this readathons. It's just, I love October. I absolutely love spooky books, horror books, thriller books. Yes, so much fun. And so why not try to put as many horror books as I can into my October TBR for all of these readathons. I mean, it's just so much fun. I could not resist. So I'm not gonna be explaining each of these readathons because all the hosts have amazing videos already explaining the readathons. So instead I will just direct you to their channels. But the 3 readathons that I will be participating in, just as a participant, not as a host, are the Halloweekend readathon, which Lexi from Books with Lexi created, and she has a lot of really amazing co-hosts, including Michelle, Katrina, Sav, and Erin. And so Lexi's channel and her announcement video for the readathon will be linked below. And then I will also be participating in Blackoweenathon. This is Locked Booktician's yearly readathon that she does for October. Again, her channel and the announcement video will be linked below. And lastly, I will be participating in Stabathon. I saw this on my friend Cammie's channel, and again, her channel and the announcement video will be linked below. So if you are curious about the exact details of each of these readathons, please check out their channels and check out the announcement videos. But as just a super brief overview, the Halloweekend readathon is basically a readathon where each weekend in October you have a prompt to choose from and you try to read a book in that weekend to fit that prompt, and there's weekend reading sprints to kind of help you out. And then Blackoweenathon is a month-long readathon dedicated to reading Black authors that write horror or mystery books. And there are also prompts to go along with this, but the main part of Blackoweenathon is to celebrate Black authors within the horror, mystery, thriller subgenres. And lastly, Stabathon is a Scream-inspired readathon. So this is actually only a week-long readathon, and there are some prompts that are Scream-inspired to go along with it. And again, this is a TBR video, so just as a general heads up, I don't know the exact plot of all of these books, especially for horror and thriller books. It's so much more fun to go in kind of blind. So I will tell you what I know about the books, but mostly this is just going to be me letting you know what books are on my radar for October, what books I'm planning to read in October, and not necessarily me telling you a ton of details about each of these books. So I'm going to start with the Halloweekend TBR because I am doing not only the main prompts but also the bonus prompts because I'm just overly ambitious, I guess, for my TBR here, because this was actually the first readathon I decided to participate in. So I was like, oh, I could do both the main prompts and the bonus prompts. And then I just kept on adding more readathons to my planned TBR for October, and now I'm like, maybe I should have just done the regular prompts, but we're doing all of them. The first prompt for the Halloweekend readathon is read a host favorite, and for that I actually chose one of Katrina's favorite, and that book is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I have owned this book for a while, I've been wanting to read it for a while, and so when I saw that this is one of Katrina's favorites, I was like, yes! October is finally the month that I am reading this book. I have read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones and really loved that book, so I'm excited to try some more of his stuff. And I know this is slasher inspired. I don't know if this is exactly a slasher, but I think the main girl in this book thinks that she is in a slasher movie. To be determined if she is actually in a slasher movie, but it has some slasher vibes, and this is obviously a horror book. And I just love the cover too. I mean, it's so simple and yet so effective. Love it. So the next prompt is choosing a book that has a Halloween word in the title, and that's kind of up for interpretation what you think a Halloween word is. And I chose Dead Lake by Darcy Coates. My Halloween word is dead, not lake. I don't know, lakes could be Halloweeny, but it doesn't scream Halloween. Dead, however, pretty Halloweeny if I do say so myself. I'm a big Darcy Coates fan. I just discovered her recently, so I have a lot of her backlist to get through, and this is one of her backlist books that I have not yet read. I love spooky water books, so I don't know if this will lean far into the spooky water vibe, but I mean, it's called Dead Lake, so I'm assuming we're getting some creepy lake content. You know, as I'm looking at this book, for the first time, I've owned this book for months, for the first time, I'm realizing this is a short story collection. So Dead Lake is the longest story in this book. It's more like a novella length. Let's see. Dead Lake is 110 pages, but then we're getting these other short stories in it. Whose Woods These Are, and then Mannequin, Hitchhiker. Oh my gosh. This is not what I thought it was. I thought this was a whole novel about a dead lake. No, it's a novella with some other short stories. That's cool. I'm keeping it on this TBR because it still fits the prompt, and Dead Lake is the longest book, is the longest story in here. I'm excited for this now, actually. I mean, I was already excited for it, but this is giving me like Parasite vibes from Darcy Coates. I've read that from her, and that was a space horror book, and I really enjoyed that. And that was similar to this, where it was kind of like a collection of short stories and novellas. So I'm excited to give this a go. The next prompt is your favorite subgenre in horror, and this was very hard to choose because I love haunted house books and I love slasher books. So I ended up going for the slasher side because there is a certain slasher book I've been wanting to read for a while, and I thought now is the time, especially since I tried to read it for my Summerween vlogs, but then I got too scared because I've heard some mixed reviews, but since then I've heard a lot of positive reviews about it. And this book is Camp Slaughter. The premise for this book is quite a simple one. A bunch of people go to this cabin in the woods. I think they're around teenage, college age, have a little party, but little do they know that there is a secret cannibal man living in the woods, and he's just waiting to pick them off one by one. This is a true slasher. I've heard it's quite gory, and I am very excited to give it a go. It is quite short, and it's on Kindle Unlimited, and I'm always looking for more books to read on Kindle Unlimited because it feels like it's free even though I do pay for it. The next prompt is read a book that is set around Halloween or gives you Halloween vibes. And I'm going with the vibes part of this prompt. I mean, this book could be set around Halloween. I have no idea. But I'm getting Halloween vibes from the new Darcy Coates book, Gallows Hill. Darcy Coates just has all of the Halloween vibes. I mean, all of her books scream Halloween to me. And Gallows Hill is a haunted story. It's about a haunted winery, which sounds absolutely amazing. I love wine, I love wineries, I love wine tastings, I love haunted house stories. Combine my two interests and I am happy. This is Darcy Coates' newest release as well, so I'm excited to actually read one of her new books and kind of read it in the time that a bunch of other people are reading it for the first time as well. Since with a lot of Darcy Coates stuff, I feel like I'm playing catch up, so it will be nice to kind of read something at the same time as everyone else. And then the last prompt of the main prompt for the Halloweekend Readathon is read a genre blend. So this could be a blend of just thriller and horror together, or it could be a thriller blended with another genre or horror blended with another genre. So, you know, I'm going for a horror romance blend because I just need some dark romance in my life. I'm going to be reading lots of horror, less of thrillers, and I need some romance still. So in this genre blend prompt, I'm gonna be reading Scream for Us. I don't know a ton about Scream for Us. I do know it's on Kindle Unlimited, and I think it is about a smutty romance between a girl and a bunch of masked men in like Halloween masks, and she kind of falls for them in their masks. I have no idea. I could be way off on that. But I know that they all have like Halloween vibes and like Halloween monster vibes, and she kind of falls for them on Halloween. So this could also work for the set on Halloween prompt, but I'm using it for the genre blend because it has romance and Halloween stuff, or romance and horror stuff, I mean. I think this book is one of those situations where it's like, are they falling in love with her or are they gonna kill her? We don't know. So those are all the main prompts for the Halloweekend Readathon, but there's also some bonus prompts if you just want more prompts to work with in your, because it is a month-long readathon. It is set just on the weekends, but it spans all of the weekends. And so, of course, I am doing the bonus prompts. I even got the merch for them. I don't know if you can see this. Very cute Ghost Reading a Book merch. So I am fully into the Halloweekend Readathon, and therefore, of course, I'm doing the bonus prompts. The first bonus prompt is read a novella, and I am reading Mothman. I bought this a couple of weeks ago because I was trying to read it for a different readathon, and then I just never got around to it. So I own it. I need to read it. I don't know much about it. I think it's about a monster because Mothman is, you know, a monster. But I just know it's a horror novella that a lot of people like. The next bonus prompt is your favorite author. Read a book from your favorite author. And of course I have to go with Grady Hendrix for horror. Grady Hendrix is my favorite horror author. Absolutely love his books. And the only stuff I have left to read from him, I think, are his short stories. So I am reading Bad Astronauts from him for this prompt. And I'm very excited because I love space horror. I don't know how horror this is or if it's more just sci-fi. I'm assuming it's sci-fi horror, so a good mix of the two, but I just know it's about astronauts in space and stuff goes wrong. The next prompt is to read a book with Halloween colors, and for that I am reading Small Spaces. We have the purple and the black. This is quite a nice spooky Halloween cover, and this is going to be my very first middle grade horror novel. I don't really read middle grade. I think the only middle grade I've really read is Rick Riordan's books. And so not only is this my first middle grade horror, this is like my first new middle grade that I've read ever. People say a ton of good things about this series, and Catherine Arden is actually the author of one of my favorite adult fantasy trilogies, and so I'm very excited to see what she does with middle grade horror. The next prompt is to read a book by a new to me author, and so I'm going with My Dearest Darkest. I've been seeing a lot of really positive things about this book, and I think it has some dark academia vibes. This is a YA horror book, and again, the cover is really, really nice. YA horror covers, I find, are just like some of the coolest covers ever. And I believe this also has some small town vibes. And the last bonus prompt for the Halloweekend Readathon, and therefore the last book I will be reading for the Halloweekend Readathon, is read a book with a cover that you love. And so I am choosing House of Hollow. This is another YA horror book, but this cover is stunning. Like, look at this cover. There was a trend recently, like, I feel like it's not as much popular anymore, but for a while we were getting tons of YA horror and thriller covers of these like creepy florals on women, and they're just all so beautiful. Like Horrid and If I Disappear and Wilder Girls, and I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of others, but all of those just have the really pretty creepy florals, and I love them. So I chose this one for the cover I love, and I literally know nothing about this book, like absolutely nothing besides it is YA horror. It was purely a cover buy, because how could I not buy it with that cover? Incredible. All right, now for the books that I will be reading for Blackoweenathon. This readathon has 6 prompts, the first of which is a backlist book, and for this I am reading The Good House. This is a haunted house book where I believe the house itself is a character, and as soon as I heard it's about a haunted house, I was all in. I love haunted house books. And besides Darcy Coates, I feel like I haven't read a ton of other authors' versions of haunted house stories. So I'm very excited to read this one. And this is backlist because I think it was published in the early 2000s. The next prompt is to read a book with queer representation, and for this I am reading The Taking of Jake Livingston. This is another YA horror book with queer representation because our main character that you can see on the front here, I believe Jake, possibly a different name, I'm not sure, but he is queer, and I believe this book does have some homophobia directed towards him, and so just trigger warnings. I mean, trigger warnings for all of these books, honestly, they're all horror books, so horrific stuff is happening. But specifically the taking of Jake Livingston, I have heard there is some homophobia in it. This cover is another one I really love, and I think a lot of people were reading it a couple of months ago, and I really wanted to read it, and then I just never got around to it, so I'm excited to be reading it now. The next prompt is to read a book that's set in the South, and I will be reading The Weight of Blood by Tiffany Jackson. This is her new book that just came out. I don't even know if it's technically out right now. I think it releases at the very end of September. I've heard that this has a lot of similar vibes to Carrie, with this really like horrific prom event, and this is set in the South because I believe it is set in Georgia, and it is their first integrated prom, meaning it's the first prom post-segregation. And I haven't read a full synopsis for this story, but on Goodreads, like a really great sentence to describe this book is Tiffany D. Jackson's Carrie-inspired novel mixes horror and racism in a small Georgia town. I really enjoyed White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson, and therefore I'm excited to try out her new YA horror book. The next prompt is to read an underrated book, and I will be reading The Quiet Ones by Brandon Massey. I've never read anything from this author. I actually found this book from Bree's channel, her channel being Locked Booktition. She is the one who created the Blackoweenathon, Readathon, and she has so many amazing recommendation videos, and I saw her talking about this as a potential one for an underrated author, and I was like, this is perfect because it's also on Kindle Unlimited, and I'm always looking for more books on Kindle Unlimited. And I believe this book is actually a little bit of a mix between horror and thriller, and the synopsis is basically these two sisters get separated into different foster care. One grows up to be a crime reporter or a crime journalist, and she is trying to find her other sister, and it brings her to this weird mansion in the middle of nowhere with some cult vibes. The next prompt for Blackoweenathon is read a recent release, and I will be reading Hide and Seeker. This is a middle grade horror, so I have a middle grade horror in my Halloweekend TBR, and this is another middle grade horror I'm hoping to read in October. I've heard amazing things about Hide and Seeker. I've heard that it's incredibly creepy, the atmosphere is amazing, so I'm excited to give it a go. And the last prompt for Blackoweenathon is read a book that is published in the 20th century, and so I will be reading Dawn by Octavia Butler. This is another one of those books that's sci-fi, but I'm hoping has enough horror aspects. I'm hoping it's like sci-fi horror together. It does get listed as horror on Goodreads, but sometimes Goodreads genres are unreliable. But this is a alien story. So it's sci-fi because aliens, I believe, come to Earth, and it's just about Earth dealing with these alien monsters. And I am always looking for more books featuring aliens. Aliens are so fun to read about, and there aren't as many books about aliens out there as I need there to be. And last but not least, my TBR for Stabathon is only actually 2 books because this is just a week-long readathon. There are quite a few prompts. I'm just choosing 2 books that kind of cover all the prompts. So I'm going to list out the prompts first and then tell you what 2 books I'm reading. So the prompts are a book with a villain point of view, a book with a romantic subplot, a final girl trope or slasher, a YA thriller or retelling, and then a book with female relationships. I will be reading The House of Hunger to fit the villain point of view, the romantic subplot, and the female relationships. I believe the romantic subplot is sapphic, and therefore we get some female relationships with the romantic subplot. And I'm just fingers crossed hoping that there is a villain point of view in House of Hunger. It sounds like there will be, but I don't know for sure because I haven't read it yet, right? So just hoping, fingers crossed, we get at least one villain point of view moment. This is by the same author that wrote Year of the Witching, and I absolutely loved Year of the Witching, and I struggle with witchy books sometimes. Like, I want to love them, but I don't end up loving them, but Year of the Witching is one witchy book that I did absolutely love, and so therefore I'm super excited to see what this author's second book is like, and I'm pumped to read House of Hunger. And then the second book on my TBR and the last book on my TBR for Stabathon fits the YA thriller slash horror and slasher prompts, and that is the second book in the Clown in a Cornfield series. I believe it's just called Clown in a Cornfield too. I don't know, it's up on the screen here. I really liked Clown in a Cornfield, the first book. I give it 4 stars. I thought it was a super fun time. So I'm excited to read this next one. It is a YA book, but it is a slasher, and the first book got quite gruesome, like quite gory. So while it's YA, I feel like it was only YA in the fact that the characters were YA, but the like horror itself felt very adult in a good way, I just want to warn you before going into this book, like it's It is YA, but it gets gory. All right, those are all the books, all 18 of the books I'm trying to read in October. These are all for different readathons. Again, I am participating in Halloweekend Readathon, Blackoweenathon, and Stabathon. Stabathon is a week-long readathon, Blackoweenathon and Halloweekend are month-long readathons. The creators that created these readathons channels will be linked below, along with their announcement videos will be directly linked as well. That way, in case you just want to check out the announcement video directly, you don't have to find the video on their channel. However, all of these people make incredible content. I highly recommend checking out the rest of their videos because I find so many amazing book recommendations on all of their channels. Let me know what readathons you'll be participating in October, if there are any. If you don't know which readathons to participate in, consider joining me in these 3 because I think they will be a lot of fun. There's a lot of activity prompts and photo prompts that I didn't mention in this video because this is just a TBR video, but there are more to these readathons than just the prompts I mentioned. But if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving me a like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye!